The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had seen many things in its 10,000 years. Wars had been declared here. Peace treaties had been signed. Empires had risen and fallen while representatives from 100 worlds argued and debated in this very room. But High Chancellor of the had never seen anything like this. The human seats were empty. Not just empty for the day. Not empty because someone was sick or late. The seats had been stripped completely bare. The nameplates that once read Earth Delegation were gone. The translation devices had been returned to storage. Even the small things that humans always brought with them, like water bottles and paper notebooks and their little flag with blue and green colors, had vanished. Stood at the center of the chamber, his scales prickling with unease. Around him, representatives from 47 different species whispered to each other. Some looked confused, others looked worried. A few, he noticed, looked almost pleased. Ambassador X of the collective made a clicking sound with her mandibles. She was a tall creature with 4 arms and eyes that reflected light like polished gems. "Perhaps they are simply running late," she said. "Humans are known for their flexible approach to time." "Their ships left 18 hours ago," replied. His voice was heavy, and he felt tired in a way that had nothing to do with his body. Every human vessel in council space departed at the same moment. They moved together like a flock of birds, and then they were gone. The chamber exploded into noise. Representatives shouted questions and accusations. Some pointed at each other. Some demanded answers that no one could give. The sound echoed off the ancient walls until raised his clawed hand for silence. "We received no formal notice of withdrawal," he continued when the noise died down. "No explanation, no list of demands, no angry speech or final message. The humans simply left." Counselor of the Hegemony let out a harsh laugh. He was a large being with thick gray skin and small eyes that always seemed to be judging everyone around him. "Good," he said loudly. "I say good riddance to them. They were troublemakers from the very beginning, always asking questions, always demanding changes, always insisting on their strange ideas about individual rights and personal freedom." Several representatives murmured in agreement, noticed this, and felt something cold settle in his stomach. "You are a fool," said a soft voice from across the chamber. Elder of the Order rose from her seat. Her body glowed with a gentle blue light and her skin shifted colors as she moved. She was ancient by any species standards, and when she spoke, others usually listened. "Do you have any understanding of what we have lost today?" Waved a thick hand dismissively. "We have lost nothing but a nuisance. Humans contributed little to this council. They are young. They are emotional. They barely live long enough to learn proper diplomacy." "They contributed nothing," Glow intensified. "Who negotiated the trade agreement between your hegemony and the collective last year? Ambassador Lisa worked for 6 months straight to find common ground between your peoples. She slept 4 hours a night and skipped meals to keep the talks moving forward." "Any competent diplomat could have done the same," replied. "Could they? Your two species had been arguing over those trade routes for 300 years. 300 years of failed negotiations, broken promises, and near wars. One human woman solved it in 6 months," shook her head slowly. "And you say they contributed nothing." Listened to this exchange with growing concern. He thought about the humans he had known over the years. They were strange creatures, to be sure. They lived such short lives compared to most council species. The average human might see 80 or 90 years, while himself had already lived for 3 centuries and would likely live for 3 more. But in those short years, humans burned so brightly. They threw themselves into every task with an energy that other species found exhausting just to watch. They volunteered for dangerous missions. They worked late nights on problems that were not even their own. They cried at sad stories and laughed at silly jokes and felt everything so deeply that it sometimes made the other species uncomfortable. "We need to find out why they left," said finally. "Someone must know something. Check the communication logs. Review the recent council sessions. Look for any sign of what might have caused this. A young aide, alike but with brighter scales, approached with a data tablet. High Chancellor, we have already begun reviewing the records. There is nothing obvious. No major incidents. No formal complaints from the human delegation in the past year. Nothing at all. There were some minor issues noted in informal communications. Comments about feeling undervalued. Concerns about being excluded from certain committees, but nothing that would explain a complete withdrawal. Took the tablet and scrolled through the information. The aide was right. There was nothing dramatic here. No single event that would justify the humans packing up and leaving without a word. But as he read, he began to notice a pattern. Small things, tiny moments that meant nothing on their own but added up to something larger. A human scientist had proposed a new research initiative and been told that her species was too short-lived to lead long-term projects. A human diplomat had requested a seat on the Cultural Preservation Committee, and been because humans had no culture worth preserving, being so young as a species. A human soldier who died defending a council outpost had received no memorial, because the council did not hold memorials for species with such brief natural. Each incident was minor, each could be explained away, but together they painted a picture that made feel sick. They were being pushed out, he murmured. Not all at once, not in any way that would cause a scandal, just slowly, steadily made to feel unwelcome. High Chancellor, the aide asked. Looked up at the chamber, at the representatives who were still arguing among themselves. Some genuinely seemed concerned about the human departure, others clearly did not care, and a few, seemed almost happy about it. Send a message to Earth, ordered. Ask them to explain their withdrawal. Use the most respectful language possible. Make it clear that we wish to understand and, if necessary, to make amends. The aide nodded and hurried away. Remained in the chamber long after the other representatives had left. He sat in his chair and stared at the empty human seats, trying to remember the last time he had actually spoken to a human delegate about something other than official business. Trying to remember the last time he had asked how they were doing, what they needed, whether they were happy. He could not remember. The chamber felt colder now, emptier, as if something essential had been removed from it, something that had never noticed until it was gone. He had a terrible feeling that the council was about to learn a very painful lesson about taking things for granted. And he had an even more terrible feeling that by the time they learned it, it might already be too late. 3 months passed after the humans left, and the Galactic Council began to fall apart. The first thing to collapse was the Frontier Medical Initiative. This was a program that sent doctors and researchers to the and most distant colonies in Council space. These colonies were often forgotten by their home governments, left to struggle with diseases and shortages, while the wealthy inner worlds enjoyed every comfort. Humans had built the Frontier Medical Initiative from nothing. They had staffed it with their own doctors, funded it with their own money, and kept it running through sheer determination. Other species had helped, of course, but the heart of the program had always been human. Dr. Nora had been the lead researcher on the plague project. There were an insect-like species who had been struck by a terrible disease. Millions had died before Doctor arrived with her team. She had worked for 2 years straight, sleeping in her laboratory, testing hundreds of different treatments until she found one that worked. Now Doctor was gone, back on Earth with the rest of her people, and the plague had returned. Chief Medical Officer OK reported to the council with fear in his many eyes. We cannot continue her work, he admitted. We have tried. We have followed her notes exactly. But there is something about human medicine that we do not understand. They approach problems differently. They try things that seem crazy but somehow work. What do you mean? Asked. Humans test treatments on themselves first. They volunteer their own bodies for dangerous experiments because they cannot bear to risk others. Doctor injected herself with 17 different compounds before finding the right one. She nearly died twice. Okay's voice trembled. None of our researchers will do this. It goes against all our training, but without that willingness to take personal risks, we cannot move forward. The disease spread to 3 more colonies that month. The death toll climbed past 5 million. Then the trade routes began to fail. Human merchants had a gift for negotiation that no other species could match. They could sit in a room with 2 groups that hated each other and somehow find common ground. They told jokes that broke the tension. They shared meals that built trust. They listened more than they talked and remembered small details that made people feel valued. The neutral trading posts that humans had established were the safest places in the galaxy to do business. Everyone knew that a deal made at a human trading post would be fair. Everyone knew that human merchants would not cheat them or take sides in old conflicts. Without humans to run them, these trading posts fell into chaos. The Merchant Coalition of 9 had been the largest trading alliance in Council space. It included species that had fought wars against each other for centuries, brought together by human diplomats who convinced them that peace was more profitable than conflict. The coalition had made everyone rich. 6 weeks after the humans left, the coalition broke apart. Old grudges resurfaced. Trade agreements were canceled. Ships that had once traveled freely between worlds were suddenly stopped and searched and sometimes seized. The price of basic goods doubled, then tripled. Planets that depended on imported food faced shortages. Factories that needed imported materials shut down. The economic models that human analysts had carefully maintained stopped working because no one else understood them well enough to keep them updated. Counselor insisted that the problems were temporary. We traded successfully for 10,000 years before humans arrived, he reminded the council. We will adapt, we always do. But the numbers told a different story. Trade volume dropped by 30% in the first month, 40% in the second. By the third month, entire sectors of the economy were collapsing. And then came the pirates. The Hollow Reach was a lawless expanse of space between Council territories. For centuries, it had been a haven for criminals, smugglers, and raiders who preyed on merchant ships. The Council had tried many times to pacify it and failed every time. 5 years ago, humans had volunteered to help. A joint task force was created with human ships leading the effort. The pirates had laughed at first. Humans were young and weak, they thought. Easy targets. They were wrong. Commander Daniel and his crew aboard the Starship Defiant became legends in the Hollow Reach. During the first major battle, a pirate armada of 60 ships surrounded the Defiant and demanded surrender. Commander had responded with just 2 words, "You first." Then he flew his ship directly at the pirate flagship, weapons firing in all directions, while his communications officer broadcast ancient human war music at maximum volume. The music was loud and strange and absolutely terrifying to species who had never heard anything like it. The pirates fled. They fled so fast that they left behind half their cargo and 2 of their own ships. And they stayed gone because human patrols continued to sweep through the Hollow Reach, and no one could predict what humans might do next. That unpredictability was the key. Other species followed rules and patterns. Humans did not. They might negotiate peacefully one day and charge into battle the next. They might spare a defeated enemy or pursue them to the ends of the galaxy. There was no way to know which response you would get, and that uncertainty kept the criminals afraid. Now the humans were gone, and the fear was fading. The first pirate attacks came 8 weeks after the departure. Small raids at first, testing the Council's defenses. When the response was slow and disorganized, the raids grew larger. Ships disappeared. Colonies sent distress calls that went unanswered for days. The Council dispatched its own patrol ships, but they lacked the human gift for unpredictability. Pirates quickly learned their patterns and avoided them. The hollow reach grew more dangerous every week. Received reports each morning, and each morning the news was worse than the day before. Medical emergencies, economic collapse, rising violence. Everything the humans had built was crumbling, and everything they had held together was falling apart. He sent message after message to Earth, asking for explanations, requesting meetings, offering whatever concessions might bring the humans back. Every message went unanswered. The humans had not declared war. They had not made threats. They had simply stopped helping, and that silence was more devastating than any attack could have been. Began to understand something that should have been obvious from the beginning. The humans had never asked for much. They had not demanded territory or tribute or political power. They had only wanted to be useful, to be valued, to be part of something larger than themselves. And the Council had repaid them with indifference. Now the Council was learning what the galaxy looked like without human kindness to hold it together. It was learning fast, and the lessons were written in suffering and death. Wondered if the humans were watching. He wondered if they felt any satisfaction at seeing the Council struggle without them. Somehow, he doubted it. That was not the human way. More likely, they were grieving. Grieving for the patients who would die without doctors' research. Grieving for the merchants who would lose everything in the economic collapse. Grieving for the colonists who would be terrorized by pirates. Humans cared too much to take pleasure in the pain of others, even others who had treated them badly. That caring was their greatest strength and their greatest weakness. And the Council had taken it for granted until it was gone. 6 months after the departure, High Chancellor finally gained access to the human archives. The humans had left behind their records when they departed. Most Council species would have destroyed sensitive information or taken it with them, but humans had simply left everything in place. Their offices remained exactly as they had been on the day of departure, as if the occupants had stepped out for lunch and never returned. Spent 3 days going through the files. Most of the material was ordinary government paperwork, supply requests, meeting schedules, personnel records, the everyday business of running a diplomatic mission. But buried deep in the archives, in a folder marked simply Personal Reflections, found something that changed everything. The document was written by Grace, the first human ambassador to the Galactic Council. She had died many years ago on Earth, an old woman surrounded by family, had never met her but he had heard stories. She was said to have been brilliant and kind and impossibly stubborn. The document was not an official report. It was a private reflection, never meant for Council eyes. Almost stopped reading when he realized this, but something made him continue. We came to the stars hopping to find what we could not find among ourselves, Ambassador had written. Unity, purpose, a sense that the universe was not cold and empty but full of friends waiting to be discovered. We found all of that and more. The other species look at us with suspicion, and I understand why. We are young. We are loud. We make mistakes and rush forward when wiser beings would hold back. But we do these things because we have so little time. A human life is brief by galactic standards. We cannot afford patience. We cannot afford to wait for perfect conditions or guaranteed outcomes. Every moment of delay is a moment of life that we will never get back. So we throw ourselves into everything, completely and without reservation. We volunteer for dangerous missions because someone must do them, and we would rather take the risk ourselves than watch others suffer. We work to solve problems that do not affect our own world because we cannot bear to see suffering and do nothing. We negotiate peace between ancient enemies because the thought of that hatred continuing is unbearable to us. I do not know if the Council will ever truly accept us, but I know this: we will never stop trying to earn that acceptance. We will never stop giving everything we have to give. That is simply who we are. Set down the document and stared at the wall of his office. His eyes burned, and he realized with some surprise that he was crying. Did not cry often. Their tear ducts had evolved for removing dust from their eyes, not for expressing emotion. But somehow, the tears came anyway. "What did we do?" he whispered to the empty room. He already knew the answer, but he needed to see it clearly. He needed to understand exactly how the council had failed. So he searched the archives further, looking for records of every interaction between humans and other species. What he found made him feel sick. The slights were everywhere. Small cruelties disguised as jokes. Dismissive comments presented as observations. Policies that excluded humans for reasons that sounded logical but were actually just prejudice dressed up in formal language. A human researcher had proposed a 10-year study of dark matter. She was told that humans did not live long enough to lead decade-long projects. The study was assigned to a scientist instead, and it had produced no results in the 15 years since. A human diplomat had requested a seat on the committee for long-term planning. He was because humans were too short for long-term thinking. 3 years later, the committee was disbanded for lack of meaningful contributions. A human soldier named Perry had died defending a colony from raiders. She had held a defensive position alone for 6 hours, allowing thousands of civilians to escape. When her family requested a council memorial, they were told that the council did not hold memorials for species with such brief natural. Her sacrifice was noted in a database and forgotten. Again and again, found the same pattern. Humans gave everything, and the council responded with indifference or contempt. Humans asked for nothing but basic respect, and even that was them. The most painful records were the internal human communications, messages between human diplomats discussing their frustration and hurt in private. Many of them expressed confusion. They did not understand what they were doing wrong. They worked harder than anyone. They volunteered for every difficult task. They tried so hard to be good partners. "Maybe if we do more," wrote one young diplomat named Stephen Palmer to a colleague, "they will finally see that we belong here. Maybe if we give enough, they will accept us." His colleague had responded sadly, "I used to think that too. Now I am not so sure. I think they will never see us as equals. I think they will always look down on us for being young and emotional and brief." "Then why do we stay?" Stephen had asked. "Because someone has to help. Because if we leave, people will suffer. Because we care, even when they do not care about us." Closed the file. He could not read any more. He thought about all the times he had seen human delegates in council chambers. They had always been so eager, so hopeful, so ready to work, and he had barely noticed them. He had taken their contributions for granted, their sacrifices as expected, their presence as permanent. Now they were gone, and he finally understood what the council had lost. It was not just the doctors and diplomats and soldiers. It was not just the skills and knowledge and energy that humans brought to every task. It was something deeper and harder to define. Humans believed that the universe could be better. They believed that different species could work together, could become friends, could build something wonderful across the stars. They believed this so strongly that they were willing to give their brief lives for it. That belief had been a gift, and the council had thrown it away. Stood up from his desk and walked to the window of his office. Outside, the station orbited slowly around a distant star. Ships came and went, but there were fewer than before. The trade routes were failing. The medical missions were shutting down. The peace that humans had helped build was crumbling. He had to fix this. He did not know how, but he had to try. The first step was making the council understand what they had done. The second step was making them want to change. And the third step, the hardest step, would be finding a way to bring the humans back. Turned away from the window and began to plan. 1 year after the humans departed, the Galactic Council was dying. Had watched it happen slowly, like a great tree rotting from within. First the small branches fell away, then the larger ones. Now the trunk itself was beginning to crack, and he feared that soon there would be nothing left but splinters. The collective and the hegemony had resumed their ancient war. For 300 years, human mediators had kept them talking, kept them trading, kept them from destroying each other. Without those mediators, old hatreds returned like fire finding dry wood. 3 border systems had already been reduced to rubble. Millions of people had died. Millions more had fled their homes, becoming refugees in a galaxy that had no place for them. The Order, one of the oldest and most respected members of the Council, had announced their withdrawal. Elder delivered the news herself, her luminescent skin dim with grief. "We joined this council because we believed in cooperation," she had said. "We believed that different species could work together for the common good. The humans showed us what that belief could accomplish. Now they are gone and we see what remains without them. Selfishness, cruelty, endless petty conflicts. We will not be part of this any longer." The ships had departed the next day, and they had taken their wisdom and their ancient knowledge with them. The plague on Prime had grown worse. Without human researchers to continue the treatment program, the disease had mutated into something new and more deadly. The death toll had passed 20 million. The government had closed their borders and stopped responding to council communications. And everywhere, in every meeting room and diplomatic gathering, there were empty spaces where humans had once stood. No one laughed at inappropriate times anymore. Humans had been famous for their jokes, their ability to find humor in dark situations. Other species had often complained about this behavior. Now, sitting in grim silence through endless arguments, missed it desperately. No one volunteered for the difficult tasks. Humans had always raised their hands first when something dangerous or unpleasant needed to be done. Now assignments sat unclaimed, and work went unfinished because no one wanted to take responsibility. No one looked at impossible problems and said they would try anyway. That had been the human specialty. Other species calculated odds and refused to act unless success was guaranteed. Humans just tried things again and again until something worked. Called an emergency session of the council. What remained of it anyway? 17 species had already withdrawn. Others attended only through recorded messages, unwilling to send representatives to a station that no longer felt safe. He stood before the chamber and looked at the faces of those who had come. Some were worried. Some were angry. Some seemed completely lost, unsure how they had arrived at this moment. "We are failing," said simply. "I do not think anyone here can deny this. Our alliances are breaking apart. Our economies are collapsing. Our people are dying from diseases we used to be able to treat and violence we used to be able to prevent." Counselor opened his mouth to speak, but silenced him with a look. The politician had lost much of his former confidence. The war with they was going badly, and his political rivals were circling like predators around wounded prey. "We have lost the humans," continued. "More importantly, we have lost what the humans represented: hope, cooperation, the belief that different species can work together instead of against each other." "What do you suggest?" asked Ambassador X. Her voice was tired. She had been working constantly to prevent the war from spreading further with little success. "The humans will not speak to us. They do not answer our messages. They do not respond to our requests for meetings." "I know," said. "That is why I am going to them." The chamber fell silent. "I will travel to Earth myself," continued. "I will stand before their leaders and ask them to explain why they left. I will listen to whatever they tell me, and if there is anything we can do to bring them back, I will do it." "The humans have closed their borders," pointed out. "They will not let you pass." "Perhaps, but I must try. Sitting here and hopping they will return has accomplished nothing. Someone must take action, and I am the only one with the authority to speak for the entire council." "And if they refuse to see you?" X asked. "If they simply turn your ship away at the border?" thought about this for a long moment. Then we will have our answer. We will know that the damage is permanent, that we have lost them forever, and we will have to find a way to survive without them. He looked around the chamber one more time. But I do not believe that will happen. I have read the human archives. I have studied their history and their philosophy. Humans are not cruel. They do not take pleasure in the suffering of others. If they left, it was because they felt they had no other choice. If we can show them that things will be different, I believe they will come back. What makes you so certain? Asked Elder. She had delayed her own departure to attend this session. Smiled sadly. Because that is who they are. They believe in second chances. They believe that people can change, that enemies can become friends, that broken things can be repaired. They would not have given so much of themselves to this council if they did not believe these things. He stepped down from the podium. I will leave tomorrow. I do not know how long the journey will take or what I will find when I arrive. But I promise you this, I will not return until I have answers. The preparations took only a few hours. Chose a small ship with a minimal crew. He did not want to appear threatening. He wanted to appear humble, like someone coming to ask for forgiveness rather than demand concessions. Before he left, he visited the empty human offices one more time. The rooms were exactly as they had been on the day of departure. A cup still sat on one desk, half filled with cold coffee. Personal photographs hung on walls, showing humans with their families and friends. Picked up one of the photographs. It showed a young woman with brown hair, smiling at the camera while holding a small child. On the back, someone had written, "Sarah and little Emma, first day of school." He did not know who Sarah was or what had happened to her and her daughter. But looking at that picture, at the love and hope in that mother's eyes, he felt something shift inside him. These were people, not abstractions or resources or political pawns, people with families and dreams and fears, people who had come to the stars hopping to find friendship and had found only disappointment. Carefully replaced the photograph and left the office. He carried the image of that mother and child with him as his ship departed the station and began the long journey toward Earth. He did not know what he would say when he arrived. He did not know if the humans would listen or if they would simply send him away. But he knew he had to try. That was something he had learned from the humans, he realized. The willingness to try, even when success was uncertain. The refusal to give up, even when the odds seemed impossible. Maybe it was not too late to learn other lessons from them as well. The journey to Earth took 3 weeks through empty space. The humans had withdrawn from all shared territory, pulling back to their own borders and sealing them tight. Their patrol ships watched the boundaries constantly, and automated messages warned all approaching vessels to turn back. "Human space," the messages said. "Visitors are not currently welcome. Please respect our boundaries." Ordered his ship to continue anyway. If the humans wanted to turn him away, they would have to do it in person. 2 light years from Earth, a human patrol ship appeared on sensors. It was smaller than its vessel but clearly well-armed. The name painted on its side read Endurance. "Approaching vessel, this is Captain Collins of the Earth Defense Force. You are entering restricted space. State your identity and purpose." Activated the communication screen. A young human woman appeared, her face carefully neutral. She had short dark hair and eyes that gave nothing away. "Captain Collins, I am High Chancellor of the Galactic Council. I have come to speak with your leaders. I wish to understand why your people departed, and I wish to apologize if you will hear me." Captain Collins studied him for a long moment. Her expression did not change, but something shifted in her eyes. Interest, perhaps, or maybe just surprise. "Follow us," she said finally. "Stay on the assigned course. Any deviation will be considered hostile." Agreed, and his ship fell into formation behind the Endurance. Earth was more beautiful than any image had prepared him for. Blue oceans and green continents swirled beneath white clouds. The planet glowed like a jewel against the darkness of space. Understood suddenly why humans loved there so fiercely. He understood why they had reached for the stars but never forgotten where they came from. This was not just a planet, it was a masterpiece. His ship landed in a coastal city called San Francisco. The buildings were tall and elegant, designed with curves and glass that caught the sunlight. Humans walked through the streets below, going about their daily lives. They did not look like the bitter, angry people had feared. They looked ordinary, perhaps even content. He was escorted to a simple conference room in a building overlooking the bay. No grand chambers, no ceremonial guards, no elaborate displays of power, just a room with windows and a view of water sparkling in the afternoon sun. A single human waited for him there. She was old by human standards, with white hair and a face lined by decades of life. But her eyes were sharp and clear, and when she looked at, he felt as if she could see everything he had ever done or thought or felt. "My name is Wright," she said. "I am the Secretary General of Earth's government. Please sit down." Sat, his hearts were beating too fast, and his mouth felt dry. "Why did you leave?" he asked. The question came out more desperate than he intended. "We need to understand. The Council is falling apart without you. Billions of people are suffering. Ancient wars are starting again. Why did you abandon us?" Secretary General Wright was quiet for a long moment. Outside the window, a bird flew past, riding the wind over the bay. "Because you never wanted us there," she said finally. Started to protest, but she raised her hand. "Not actively. You did not expel us or threaten us, but in 10,000 small ways every single day you made clear that we were tolerated, not welcomed, useful, not valued. Our contributions were accepted but never acknowledged. Our sacrifices were expected but never honored." She leaned forward in her chair. "Do you know how many humans died in service to the Council over the past century? 3,412 people. Young people mostly. People who believed they were making a difference. People who gave their lives because they thought it mattered." Did not know this number. He felt ashamed that he did not know it. "Do you know how many memorial ceremonies the Council held to honor them?" Wright continued. Searched his memory, he found nothing. "None," Wright said. "Not one. When our people died, we were told that humans had short lives anyway, so what difference did it make? When we asked for recognition, we were told that other species had contributed more. When we expressed grief, we were told that our emotions were excessive and inappropriate." Her voice remained calm, but her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "We gave you everything we had, everything. Our energy, our creativity, our hope, our lives, and you never once said thank you." Felt the weight of every word. He wanted to argue, to defend, to explain, but there was nothing he could say. She was right. "I am sorry," he said. The words felt small and inadequate. "I am sorry for every insult and every dismissal. I am sorry for every sacrifice we ignored and every contribution we failed to acknowledge. I am sorry for what we took from you and what we never gave in return." Wright studied him with those sharp eyes. Then slowly she nodded. "That is a start." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the bay where boats moved across the glittering water. "We are not gone forever," she said quietly. "We simply needed you to notice our absence. We needed you to understand what you had. Humans are not good at protecting ourselves, High Chancellor. We give until there is nothing left. The only way to make it stop was to leave entirely." "Will you come back?" asked. "Perhaps, in time, when the Council proves that things will be different." She turned to face him. "But understand this, we will never again accept being taken for granted. If we return, it will be as equals. Our contributions will be acknowledged. Our sacrifices will be honored. Our voices will be heard." Rose from his seat. For the first time in a year, he felt something other than despair. It was a small feeling, fragile and uncertain, but it was there. Hope. "Then I will make it happen," he said. "I do not know how long it will take. I do not know how hard it will be, but I will change the council. I will make them see what I have seen today. And when we are ready, truly ready, I will return and ask again." Wright extended her hand, had learned this human custom during his years on the council. He took her hand and they shook. "We will be waiting," she said. "We have always been waiting. We just needed you to come find us." As his ship departed Earth, looked back at the blue-green world growing smaller in his. The humans had not demanded territory or wealth or political power. They had asked only to be valued for who they were. It seemed such a simple thing, and yet the entire Galactic Council had failed to provide it. He opened a communication channel to the council station, where he knew the remaining representatives would be waiting for news. "I have spoken with the humans," he announced. "They may return to us, but first we must change, all of us. I will explain everything when I arrive, but I want you to begin with this. Research every human who ever served the council. Learn their names, learn their stories, learn what they gave us and what they sacrificed." He paused, feeling the weight of the moment. "And then we will finally say the words we should have said long ago. We will say thank you. We will say we are sorry, and we will prove through our actions that we mean it." The journey home would take 3 weeks. Spent the time writing letters. Letters of apology, letters of recognition, letters to the families of humans who had died in council service, acknowledging their loved ones and honoring their memory. It was a small beginning, but it was a beginning. And somewhere behind him, on a beautiful blue-green world, the humans were waiting. Waiting to see if the council could learn from its mistakes. Waiting to see if second chances were possible. Believe they were, he had to believe it. Because that was something else the humans had taught him. The importance of hope, even when hope seemed foolish. The power of believing that tomorrow could be better than today. It was the most human thing he had ever learned, and he would never forget it.